So hi everybody, welcome to my presentation titled Transmedia Storytelling, New Storytelling Forms Emerging, and even Hollywood Noticed. The key theme throughout this presentation will be that there are tensions between storytelling and the internet, and we will explore some of these tensions. Some of you know that I always walk around and tell people that I'm doing a PhD about film, and I won't really be talking about film here, but that's because I started off looking at I was interested in how film can survive in the current world. That's how I always called it. And film has many problems, as we've just seen, you know, trying to get made. And it turns out film is not the only one. Film is not the only one who's having problems in the current world. So I had to take a few steps back and gain a bit more of a macro perspective, I guess. So now I'm looking at film as a form of storytelling. And in the end, when I was talking about current world, to me personally, it simply meant, you know, the influence of the internet on everything around us. So the tensions between, to me, it turned out, like, from my point of view, the tensions between film and the current world were kind of similar as the tensions between storytelling and the internet generally, and of course some aspects of it. So for this talk, we look at two of these macro questions. How can you really explore storytelling using the internet? And you here means storyteller, so how can a storyteller really exploit the internet? Or from a different perspective, what will we call internet-enabled storytelling in the future? And internet-enabled here simply means storytelling that is impossible without the internet, and we'll see an example of that in a moment. The good thing about this, my chaotic current world, is that it's not new. Storytellers have been confronted with similar situations before, and so we'll use a bit of historical analysis here and combine it with some evolutionary theory to look at the evolutionary process of storytelling and how internet fits in. Storytelling is based on communication, and interestingly, throughout history, there have only been 5 fundamental communication technologies: speech, writing, print, broadcast, and now many argue the internet. And every single communication technology has been adapted for storytelling purposes. So this is what the first 4 have been used for. Speech led to the emergence of oral storytelling, poetry. Writing led to the emergence of theater and literature. Print led to the emergence of science, novel, journalism, and all the derivatives of those. Broadcast, in the broadest sense, led to the feature film, radio, TV, television series, and all the derivatives of those. It is important to remember, and we'll get back to that at the very end, that every newer storytelling form builds on or poeticizes previous technologies in various ways. We'll get back to that later. What's also interesting is that older forms always look down upon younger forms. So film was the youngest one at some point, and nobody took it seriously. And then along came TV, and all of a sudden, you know, TV people had something to look up to, and film had somebody to look down to. And we'll get back to that later on as well. But also, interestingly, the higher the prestige, the less people in the end consume it. Sorry. Yeah, but how does the process from emergence of a new communication technology lead to a new storytelling form? How does it look like? And let's go through the example of surprise film. So basically, variation, selection, retention is Darwin's theory of evolution. And in the sense of the communication technology film, so we're not talking about the feature film as a form, but film as a technology, 35mm film. Towards the end of the 19th century, lots of people were experimenting, finding new ways of capturing images, moving images, and displaying those moving images again. And at some point, somebody came up with the fittest idea, which was the Lumiere brothers at that point in time, 1895-6 in France. And this technology was selected and then later on retained and copied throughout the system, which simply means 35mm film cameras were all over the world, and 35mm film projectors were all over the world as well. And only then could storytellers start exploring the technology. So that was 1895-6, and they started simply by filming stuff in the street or going to faraway places and filming what happened there without any story. Then they filmed boxing matches, theater plays, and came up with short films and news, and in the end we ended up with a feature film, which today kind of defines film to us in a way. But that took 20 years from the emergence of the technology to the emergence of the dominant storytelling form. So there's always a time lag between those two. And this process is constantly repeated inside the technology. So film is refined as a technology. We add sound, color, 3D, and storytellers explore these refined technologies all the time. Every single time they have to readjust to them. But also every time that's a step change in the system. But also entirely new technologies emerge. Like when television emerges, all of a sudden, people jump onto television and start telling stories via television. And film finds a way to compete with that. They create 3D in the 50s. And so it's a constant process that's repeated. And yeah, so what about this? And we only had 4 system changes, which I meant 4 new, four new communication technologies throughout history: speech, writing, print, and broadcast. So what about the 5th fundamental communication technology, the internet? This is a bit of a work in progress here. I'm not going to go through it in detail. But basically what I did is I found 5 characteristics of all communication technologies and worked through the 5 communication technologies and kind of compared them. And there are certain trends, like from openness to control, from speech to broadcast, from dialogue to monologue, and so forth. And if you look at it, the internet looks more like evolved speech. It has the exact same characteristics as speech, except for a vastly higher reach. So writing, print, and broadcast are just simply different. Who knows if they were some kind of evolutionary dead ends or not. I'm not saying that I love them. But they're just, internet looks way closer, way more similar to speech than to any of the other communication technologies. So I and some others, of course, argue that internet is the 5th fundamental communication technology, and it will lead to entirely new forms of storytelling. So not just let's watch Lord of the Rings on the iPhone, but the difference between the novel and film, between theater and the novel. So let's have a look at one, but remember it's very, very early on, low budget, it's kind of awkward, and I think in 5, 10, 20 years' time, these things will look entirely different, but they kind of bring the point across. It's just 2 minutes.
What was The Art of the Heist? In its simplest terms, it was a spy movie come to life, based around the theft of the first Audi A3 in America. A spy movie that you didn't just watch on screen, but one that you could actually participate in. A story that went from the virtual world to the real world and back. This living movie started with a live theft at the Audi dealership on Park Avenue. If you had been walking by that night, you would have seen 2 goons smash the window and make off with the A3. You would have seen security guards run after a suspect, hand out wanted flyers, and put up police tape. The following day at the New York International Auto Show, instead of seeing America's first A3, you would have seen signs reporting the missing car in place of the car itself. If you had asked the attendants at the show what happened, they would have shrugged, not knowing themselves if this was real or not. Checking auto enthusiast websites, you would have read bloggers from around the world reporting the story of the missing A3. A few weeks later, you might have noticed billboards, newspaper ads, and wild postings appearing, asking for your help in locating the car. While watching TV one night, you might have seen this oddly awkward yet sincere television commercial.
Attention. A series of events has led to the disappearance of a red 2006 Audi A3. If you have any information regarding its location, please contact Audi of America immediately at audiusa.com/A3 or call 1-866-OK-RECOVER. This car is equipped with dual clutch DSG, open sky system, Audi Nav Plus, and 2 SD card slots. Thank you.
Finally, deciding to investigate the missing A3 for yourself, you visit the website, audiusa.com/A3. You would have learned that Audi had mysteriously contracted a firm specializing in the recovery of high-end stolen art, lastresortretrieval.com, a company run by sexy Nisha Roberts and geeky Ian Yarbrough. Their site contained thousands of pieces of information, all of it seemingly legit. Telephone calls, faxes, messages, receipts, photographs.
This thing goes way deeper. This is just the beginning of it. The video this is like the first third of the video. And check it out for yourselves. The Art of the Heist. It goes bonkers afterwards, and it's really cool. And I know this one is marketing, but the problem is it's not storytelling. Mainly storytelling. But the thing is, that's where the money is at the moment. So simply that's where most of the stuff is happening. But this is changing rapidly, quite rapidly actually. So what will we call these storytelling forms? Many are trying to answer this question. And on the one hand, you have practitioners, creators, storytellers who create new forms and then try to find a name because they have to sell it somehow, they have to get money for it. And basically, any combination of one of these terms is used by somebody in the industry. So you can have cross-platform programming or interactive experience, 360-degree entertainment. Plus, on the bottom here, alternate reality games, which basically was the birth of this kind of storytelling form. It was used, the name was used for everything in the beginning, but it turns out it was more of a niche phenomenon, and it still is, and it's out there. But now it's a fairly specific thing, I would argue. Also, the Producers Guild of America definition that I provided in the abstract in the booklet was written by practitioner Jeff Gomez, who actually interviewed for my PhD, which was quite cool. So Hollywood, and I'm quite consciously saying Hollywood here because the Producers Guild of America is one of the most powerful institutions in Hollywood, is extremely interested in this new storytelling form. But they struggle to come to terms with it, just like everybody else. So on the other hand, you have people who approach a topic from a theoretical perspective. And I'm just going to go through this here. The first one, transmediality, means the appearance of a certain motive, aesthetic, or discourse across a variety of different media. Basically, you have a phenomenon that is the same across many media. And this can then be applied, or was applied by various scholars to lots of different topics. Jasper Jewell, for example, applied it to transmedial games. So chess is a transmedial game. You can play it on a board, but you can also play it with real people in the park. And Henry Jenkins, but this has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. And Henry Jenkins applied transmediality to storytelling. He called it transmedia storytelling. Let me read out the definition to you. A transmedia story unfolds across multiple media platforms, with each new text making a distinctive and valuable contribution to the whole. In the ideal form of transmedia storytelling, each medium does what it does best, so that a story might be introduced in a film, expanded through television, novels, and comics. Its world might be explored through gameplay or experienced as an amusement park attraction. So he basically laid the foundations, but then later on he went on and talked a lot about hunting down bits of the entertainment, bits of the story, collaborating on a big scale, and it turned out to be a bit more of a niche phenomenon. So his idea was geared a lot towards niche entertainment. The next concept here, paratextuality, is by Jonathan Gray, and he basically says that no text, every text creates or spawns or has paratexts around it. The moment you write a book and you put it out there, you give it to somebody in the world, somebody reads it, tells somebody else about it, that's a paratext. If the book is advertised on a poster, that's a paratext. And he then talks about incorporated and unincorporated paratexts. So an incorporated one is one that the storyteller himself creates as part of his, as a supporting bit to his main text. Unincorporated paratexts are all the ones that spawn up all around us everywhere, all the time. I tell you something about the book and that's a paratext. The next concept is screen bleed from Matt Hansen, so that's very much from a film perspective, and he talks about the story bleeding from the screen into other media. And the interesting bit about this is that he also talks quite specifically about real life events. So for example, if you walk past the Audi dealership, and you were there and you saw those goons smashing the window and stealing the car, then you saw the story, you were part of it. And it was not on any screen, any book, any written word. And the last one is pervasive and ubiquitous games, which is a bit more, definitely more from a games perspective. And the idea is that instead of going to a game, for example, switching on the Xbox and playing a game, playing Halo, the game is with you at all time, and you can decide if you want to engage with it or not. So for example, you're standing in the street, you pull out your iPhone knows where you are, so the moment you decide to play, the iPhone turns your environment into a playground and you can do something. That's the pervasiveness or ubiquity of games.